Not yet. No, I don't think you actually. Well, you could get on the question. That's not where I'm going. Yeah. Okay. So, is everyone following this so far?
Yes.
Okay. Feel free to interrupt at any moment. Okay. Okay. Now, question, or rather, what do you make of this statement? The cause of the universe is either personal or impersonal. Those are two options. Either a personal, immaterial, eternal, powerful something brought the universe into existence, or something not personal. Do you see any other options? Those are the two options, right? If you're an atheist, then you believe that if this is true, something impersonal brought the universe into existence. Okay? If you're a Christian like myself and you believe in a personal God, I believe that something personal brought the universe into existence. Okay, you guys following me so far? Question?
And what do you mean by impersonal?
When I say personal, I'm talking about a person. A person. So either a person with these features brought the universe into existence, or something that is not a person with these characteristics.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? And so I would actually say that the cause of the universe not only has this, but it also has another characteristic. I'm going to leave the person thing for last. Since it brings time into existence, it needs to exist outside of time, and therefore it is changeless, because change implies time. Think about what time is. Time is a measurement of events that have a before and after then relationship. If events are occurring, you can always have some form of measurement of time. But since the time began to exist, you have a cause of the universe that is changeless. Immaterial. Gospel of John, chapter 4, verse 24. God is spirit. Eternal, all over the book of the Bible. You are the eternal God. God is all-powerful, omnipotent. I change not. I am the Lord. I change not. You see, we have a changeless, powerful, eternal, immaterial something, which ironically resembles the traditional idea of the Judeo-Christian God. Notice what this refutes. It refutes a pantheistic view of God, because the characteristics of the cause of the universe is different than the God of pantheism, who is everything. God in pantheism is everything is God. Everything is part of God. All the universe is part of God. The problem is, if this is true, and God is the universe and everything in the universe, if you go back in time, the God of pantheism doesn't exist. And so that's impossible, because a God must be eternal. The God can't be a kind of being that can't exist. He's what we call a necessary being, if he does exist. Okay? Am I making sense so far? Okay? And I don't expect you to. Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't aiming for you. He don't even know me. He don't kick the caps at me. But my bad. I apologize. All right. My goal here is not to convince you 100% of what I'm saying. I want you to think about, at least go home and think about, the plausibility and the evidential foundation of there being a God, because that's an important question. If God exists, that means a whole lot for you. If God exists, and if the God of the Bible exists, that means there is an opportunity for you to have a personal relationship with the cause of the friggin' universe. It's amazing. And for me personally as a Christian, I have said often, like King David said in the Psalms, where he says, "What is man that you're even mindful of us? The God who created all things. Why do you even care?"
I was on that last place for my
Yeah, it's crazy. Yes, go ahead.
What if that's not true?
What not true?
The theory.
This whole theory?
Yeah.
Sure. Then I have a whole bunch of arguments other than this one that doesn't appeal to science. So for example, my belief in God is not dependent on this argument. This is an argument that I like to point people to show them, there's good reason to assume that there's something beyond the universe, and that causes us to ask the question, what is going on here? As a matter of fact, Albert Einstein, when he developed his theory of relativity, he didn't like the idea that the universe began to exist. You know why? Many scientists don't like it. You know why? It sounds too much like Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's a crazy concept. When you read the book of Genesis, it was originally written in Hebrew. Notice this. Ready? In the beginning, God created created. The Hebrew word for create is bara. There are two different kinds of Hebrew words. To create something with using material is haya, like karate, right? But there's one word, to make, which is only used when God is the one doing it. It is bara. It literally means to create from nothing. And so you actually have what we observe scientifically right in the first verse of Genesis, in a time where no one believed that. Everyone believed the universe is just here, and that's it. Okay? And so we have the minority view of the Jews being correct before we even observed this. One guy said there were a bunch of scientists who were climbing up a mountain. They were about to reach the precipice of the mystery of the universe, and as soon as the scientists reach the top, they see a group of theologians who are already at the top, who knew all along, this is how we got here. So what science is just discovering now is actually confirmed before science even developed in the first pages of the Bible, which I think is amazing. Okay? Now, I leave the personal aspect. If this is true, if this last step is true, atheism is impossible. If this is true, okay? Because this is not God, this is not God, this is not God, this is not God. These are characteristics. But if these characteristics are linked to a personality, then by definition, that is God. God, the person who is a changeless, powerful, eternal, immaterial being, who is unimaginably powerful to bring forth the entire physical reality. Okay? Now, the reason why I leave this last is because it's kind of tricky, the way to explain it. And people usually don't, you have to say it a couple of times. Okay? I'll give you an example. Let's say the cause of the universe is impersonal. Okay? I borrow a chair. Okay, ready? Pretend I am something immaterial, eternal, powerful, changeless, and impersonal. I'm not a person. And say the entire whiteboard is the universe. How can an immaterial, eternal, powerful, changeless, impersonal something cause anything? It's impersonal, and it's changeless. If I'm impersonal and changeless, I will just remain here, changeless and impersonal, not doing anything. And so the universe would never begin to exist. You see? And so that actually is an irrational position to hold. Impersonal cause of the universe. That's why many scientists today, to remove the force of this, the creator God, they've actually developed what's something called the multiverse theory. The idea that there's an infinite number of universes that are bubbling off and creating other universes. And lo and behold, our universe is just one of those infinite universes. The problem is, there's no evidence for that. It's just an attempt to avoid this. It's my pleasure to meet you. Take care of these, all right? You see what I'm saying? And so science actually has to posit a theory that has no evidentiary basis to avoid this. We tend to think of scientists as objective, unbiased individuals with lab coats and glasses. That is not true. You read the literature, and there's actually a very interesting quote by someone whose name escapes me. He says, "We must deal with the problem of an absolute beginning." This is a scientist. Wasn't a Christian. I think he's an agnostic guy. He just doesn't know what's out there. He says, we need to deal with the problem of a cosmic beginning. Question.
What's cosmic beginning?
Cosmic beginning is the idea that the cosmos began to exist. The scientist says, we need to deal with the problem that this is what it appears to be the case. The universe began to exist. Question. Why is that a problem? If science is looking for truth, and we find that the universe began to, what's the problem? You see, the problem is that they don't like the possible conclusion that what brought the universe into existence is God, which shows that many people are not as objective as you might seem. Okay, and so if the cause of the universe is immaterial, eternal, powerful, changeless, the changeless person, because they're a person, can actually decide to get up and do something. An impersonal impersonal something couldn't do that. Okay? And so, The cause of the universe has to be immaterial, eternal, powerful, changeless, and this can be further developed, which I won't have time to give it due justice. If this is true, then God exists. Okay, and I'm going to give you a full-out list here, an outline of this argument in its totality, and then I'll take some questions, and then we'll take it from there.
I have to go.
Yep, it is a pleasure. It is a pleasure. Take care.
I'm going to message Sammy and be like, oh my God, I think you're really piece of shit.
Tupac. That's a Tupac girl. I don't remember your. Keep it real. Keep it real. Love that.
I'm Ellie, by the way.
Eli. Nice. Oh my gosh, you're like the female version of me. Okay. All right. Take care. It was a pleasure. Okay. I need another marker. This is a shot. Anybody go hook me up? Oh, Latino connection. Oh, too late.
Oh.
Okay. What I've just demonstrated here is something called the Kalam cosmological argument. Don't need to remember that word. But here's how it goes. It has a couple of steps. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. What logically follows? Anybody?
The universe has a cause.
That's right. The universe has a cause. Now, if these two are true, this follows by logical necessity. You cannot deny it. If you don't like this conclusion, you need to challenge the truth of these 2 steps. Whatever begins to exist has a cause merely means this: things can't come into being uncaused out of nothing. If they can, then why don't we still observe this now? Are universes the only things that could just burst into it? Why can't a car just burst into existence in the middle of this classroom? It's illogical, it's irrational. By the way, all of science is based upon that assumption. If you don't assume that, then I could explain things scientifically. Well, this thing came into existence over here and caused that, and you'd screw up all the foundation of science. And so this is actually very commonly accepted. The universe began to exist. I gave you evidence from that, the Big Bang. Okay? The universe has a cause. This is the moment where we now try to analyze what does a cause of the universe look like, and we get the characteristics: immaterial, changeless, timeless, and I would argue personal. And so whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. That cause is God. Timeless, immaterial, eternal, changeless, omnipotent being, something that brought the universe into existence. All right? There's a lot more stuff written on this and in more detail. But in the thumbnail sketch, does that make a little sense? Okay, good. Now, again, there's probably 50 other questions that you could ask and pose. We don't have time for all of them. But are there any questions, just based on what we went through? Did you have a question?
Me?
Yeah, I thought you had your hand up.
No, I just think that you did a good job. It's very, like, you're making me ponder.
Good. That's what mission accomplished.
I'd just like to say something too. I think for the first time you can actually justify. I mean, especially for me, when you opened it with how you know, I don't know. I just know that I know. You know.
Exactly.
Right.
But now I have something that I can actually support and have a valid argument with.
Sure.
You know, and I think that once you're a scholar, you start to look for those reasons to justify why things are the way that they are. Faith isn't necessarily something that's justifiable. However, with that, I mean, that is, even if it's not justifiable, if logic is able to take the place of justification, then
And I would argue logic itself is an evidence for God. You see, if you are an atheist and you believe all reality is just physical, by definition, logic is a concept. It's an idea. Ideas are not physical. So if I were an atheist and affirmed that, you'd have to throw out logic. But clearly, we're talking, and logic must be assumed. And so logic itself is a concept, and they're universal principles. So I would argue logic itself is a universal concept that is a reflection of a universal God. And since logic is required for every discipline, I would argue science, history, and your very ability to do all of that assumes God exists while denying it with your mouth. You're actually relying on the things that have God as its foundation, namely logic. That is the argument for God's existence via the existence of minds. Minds prove the existence of God, unless an atheist can prove that mind is nothing more than your physical brain. And I would say that's very, very implausible for various reasons that I can't get into. Okay?
I want you to leave that there, like, so that
Well,
tomorrow morning,
this looks
like,
mumbo jumbo to someone who just walks in.
Yeah.
But if you want to check this out, that website, CARM, Christian Apologetics Research Ministry, is a great website. I didn't learn that argument there, but there are a lot of questions about the Bible, about Christianity, about Jesus. You just type it in the little search bar, and there are articles written on this. When I learned this stuff, it blew my mind and caused me to go in a fit of study. And so I don't know all this stuff because I'm smart. I know this stuff because I became so obsessed with wanting to know the truth that I threw myself into research on these things. You don't need a college degree to do this. All you got to do is read literature, think about it, try to think about what are some objections to these arguments. And I would argue that there are good answers for them. And so Christians have a good foundation and not a blind